In the last month of my life, I knocked over the figurine belonging to the girl my family raised by mistake, and my parents and brother threw me out of the house. The night I was preparing to die, I suddenly received a letter from the Underworld. The writer said he had a piggy bank that he'd left behind in the world of the living. He asked me to find it and burn it for him. The messy, scrawled handwriting was familiar. It was from the school badass who chased me for 5 years, the one who died at 19. I laughed out loud in the dead silent, ice-cold room. A moment later, I tried to write a sentence back on the letter. If I help burn it for you, can you split the money inside with me? I'll be down there to spend it soon enough. The paper suddenly froze in mid-air. After a long pause, new, hurried words floated to the surface. What's wrong with you? The day I was packing my things to be admitted to the hospital, I placed the few clothes I owned into a suitcase. When I stood up, probably from low blood sugar, my vision suddenly went black, and I almost collapsed. I flailed, trying to grab the coffee table for support. But I accidentally knocked a small Buddha statue off the table and onto the floor. The statue landed on the rug with a soft thud. Honestly, the carpet was thick, so it wasn't damaged. But in the dining room not far away, the 4 people sitting around the breakfast table immediately snapped their heads in my direction. I instinctively reached down and picked up the figurine. Almost at the same time, Jessica's sharp voice shrieked, "Don't touch it." I froze and quickly placed the Buddha back on the coffee table. Her eyes were still blazing with fury as she lunged at me. "Who said you could touch my things? It's for protection and good luck, and you got it dirty. You made it filthy." I tried to explain. "The carpet is clean. It's not dirty, and it's not broken." Jessica was hysterical, her body trembling as she raised a hand to strike me. Her voice was filled with hatred. "You know perfectly well I'm not talking about the carpet. You're a filthy woman who deals with the dead every day. You did this on purpose." Her hand was about to slap across my face. I instinctively raised my arm to block it, but then I was shoved hard. My brother, Leo, appeared with a dark expression. He pushed me aside and pulled Jessica behind him. He looked at me, his eyes full of disappointment. "Lily, that's enough." I was stunned for a moment, then laughed out of sheer anger. Enough of what? What did I even do? Leo's cold, deep eyes held a look that said he saw right through me. He didn't say another word, as if he couldn't be bothered to argue with me. Nearby, my mom let out a soft sigh. "Lily, you know your line of work. Things like a Buddha statue, they're meant to be kept clean and treated with respect." I looked at them, at this so-called family. Suddenly, everything I saw felt alien. After a long moment, I let out a cold laugh. "If you think I'm so filthy, then why do you even let me live here?" As soon as the words left my mouth, my dad's voice, pushed beyond its limit, roared, "Then get out." As I dragged my suitcase out of the house, my dad's furious voice followed me. "All these years, she's done nothing but cause trouble for Jessica. It's getting worse and worse. She should have been kicked out a long time ago to learn her lesson." Leo watched blankly, saying nothing. My mom sighed again while comforting Jessica. I left the neighborhood, planning to head to the hospital to get admitted. Just then, my doctor sent me a text with my test results. He added a few gentle, carefully worded lines. "There's no rush to come to the hospital. If there's anything you want to do, you can take care of that first." His tone was so mild and forgiving. It was as if he wasn't the same person who had looked at me sternly yesterday and told me to get admitted immediately. It was the height of summer in South City, and the cicadas in the front yard buzzed endlessly. The sun blazed overhead, but a sudden inexplicable shiver ran down my spine. No one can truly be at peace when suddenly faced with their own death. I stared at the text message for a long time before frantically turning off my phone. Instinctively, I turned to look back at the house behind me. Leo was standing on the front steps. His eyes met mine, and he frowned, looking like he wanted to say something but was holding back. For a split second, I actually thought he was going to ask if I was okay. When I went to the hospital yesterday, the doctor said my complexion was ghastly. People in the business world always said Leo had the eyes of a hawk, that nothing escaped his notice. I thought if he asks, maybe I'll tell him the truth. After a moment, he finally spoke. "If you know you have nowhere to go now that you've left, you should apologize to Jessica immediately." That last, tiny, nameless thing I'd been holding onto inside. It fell to the ground and shattered into dust. I suddenly remembered when I was 17, and Leo came to take me home. He had said, "I'm here to take you home. From now on, you'll have me and Mom and Dad. We'll never let you be wronged again." I looked at him, then at the parents behind him, and a bitter laugh escaped me. My hand tightened around the handle of my suitcase. I turned and walked away without a second of hesitation. There was no need to go to the hospital anymore. Fortunately, I'd been working for years, and even if my job wasn't considered respectable, I'd at least saved up enough money for a down payment on a small, one-bedroom apartment in a remote part of town. No matter how simple it was, at least no one there would tell me to get out. I moved into the new place, then made a trip to the funeral home to explain my condition and resign. On the way home, a sudden downpour soaked me to the bone. The water heater in my apartment seemed to be broken. I fiddled with it for a long time and finally got it working, but by then, I was completely exhausted. I just slid down the wall and sat there, my mind blank, trying to catch my breath. Something dripped onto the floor. The crimson, mixed with the water on the bathroom floor, was jarring. I raised a hand to my nose and felt the sticky wetness. I managed to grab my phone, scrolled through my contacts from top to bottom, but realized there wasn't a single person I could call for help. Of course, I could call 911, but I put the phone down. Staring into the empty air, I didn't move. Because of my job, I've seen countless dead people, and countless people who were about to die. I know better than anyone what a living hell the final days are for someone with a terminal illness. If I was doomed to die soon anyway, I'd rather not have those last few days. My surroundings started to blur. I wanted to close my eyes and just sleep. But then, hovering in the air, a few words faintly appeared. "Excuse me." I stared for a moment, certain I was hallucinating. It's not uncommon for the dying to lose clarity. But the handwriting was so familiar. Sloppy, ugly, completely chaotic. I found it almost funny. My hazy mind seemed to be pulled back many years. To the boy who died at 19. When he was alive, he was just like me, unliked by everyone. It was as if it sensed my gaze. New words quickly appeared on the floating piece of paper. "I left a piggy bank in the living world. Would you mind taking some time to get it and burn it for me?" This time, my mind cleared a little, and the words were less blurry. It didn't seem like a hallucination. For a second, I was in disbelief. But maybe because I'd seen so many dead people, or maybe because I was about to die myself. As shocked as I was, I didn't feel any fear. I even felt a bit of my strength return. I wiped away the blood that covered half my face. I struggled to my feet and found a pen in a drawer. When I returned to the bathroom, the letter was still floating there, waiting. I sat back down, ready to respond to this strange, end-of-life event. To tell him that I probably couldn't help. I was dying too. I didn't have time. He seemed to sense it. New, messy words quickly appeared on the paper. "It's easy to get. A day at most. Please, just this one favor." He must have been in a real pinch. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Across the long river of time, that face faintly reappeared in my mind. Arrogant, stubborn, despised by everyone. Until the end, when it became a mangled corpse with a blurred face and missing limbs. I lifted the pen several times. In the end, I pushed aside my refusal and wrote, "If I burn it for you, can I have some of the money inside?" Maybe it had been too long since anyone had talked to me. I found myself trying to joke with a dead person. The spirit of a dead person who was most likely just a figment of my imagination. The words I wrote faintly appeared on the paper. I thought for a moment and added an explanation. "I'll be down there soon enough, so I'll be able to spend it then." A corner of the bathroom window was broken, and the summer night breeze drifted in silently. The gently blowing paper suddenly froze in midair. I continued to sit there, quietly watching the motionless paper. For a long time, neither of us moved. Just as I was thinking that my hallucination was about to end, new words appeared, extremely slowly and hesitantly. "What happened to you?" The letter swayed gently in front of me. I didn't reply, lost in thought. New words kept appearing, chaotic and illegible, then fading away again. Finally, two words remained, "Okay." I asked for the address of the piggy bank. Then I got up, took a painkiller, and went to bed. The address wasn't far, just at a university in the next state. One day would be enough. I wasn't in that much of a hurry to die. I could just think of it as doing one last good deed before the end. The next morning, I bought a plane ticket to Clifton. Unfortunately, in the airport lounge, I ran into Jessica again. She was flanked by my mom and dad, with Leo pushing her suitcase a step ahead of her. The same as always, a little princess doted on by everyone. She complained about being so tired, and as if she didn't see me, walked straight toward where I was sitting. I didn't want them to see me, so I got up to find another seat. But behind me, Jessica's voice suddenly rose. She called out to me with feigned surprise, "Lily? You're here too?" In the blink of an eye, they were standing in front of me. Jessica looked at the ticket in my hand, her expression one of disbelief. "You're going to Clifton too? It's not Clifton University, is it?" My parents' faces immediately turned strange. Leo frowned, looking down at me with that same disappointed, all-knowing expression. He said coldly, "Cancel your ticket." I didn't have the energy to deal with them and turned to leave. My arm was suddenly grabbed, and Leo's angry voice was in my ear. "Lily, I told you last night, if you want to come home, apologize to Jessica. I didn't tell you to come here and stalk Jessica and the rest of us." A rush of anger surged through me. I turned and violently shook off his hand. "Who's stalking you? You don't own the airport. I can go wherever I want." Leo seemed furious, speechless for a moment. After a while, he finally let out a cold laugh. "I don't care if you're following Jessica, or going to Clifton U for some anatomy class. You'd better drop those morbid ideas right now. Look at yourself. After all these years of dealing with the dead, you're just creepy and grim from head to toe. Do you even seem like a living person anymore? Mom and Jessica are scared of that stuff. How many times have you terrified them over the years?" I couldn't take it anymore. I was so angry my vision started to blur. I cut him off, shouting, "My life is none of your business. Just pretend I never came back. Just pretend I died a long time ago." My dad's face was livid. He strode over and raised his hand to slap me. I quickly lifted my arm and blocked his. All these years as a mortician, occasionally helping to move bodies, I'd built up some strength. I held his arm for a good while before letting go. He was so enraged his face turned pale, and he yelled at me, "You're hopeless." I pushed his hand away, turned, and left, choosing an empty seat far away from them. In my peripheral vision, I saw my mom cover her face with her hands, her voice choked with sobs. What more can we do to make her feel a little closer to us? Countless eyes from all around turned to me, filled with doubt and accusation. As I sat down again, I saw my dad, from a distance, take out a wet wipe and carefully clean his sleeve. It took me a moment to remember that I had grabbed his sleeve when I blocked his hand. After he finished wiping, he must have felt a little guilty, because he glanced over in my direction. Our eyes met across the crowd. His expression froze. He quickly threw away the wipe and looked away. I thought it was hilarious. I tried to smile, but my lips wouldn't move. Honestly, if someone had actually cared, I could have been gentler, more obedient. In fact, when I first came back to this family, I did try to be more obedient. The emotional turmoil must have been too much, because I felt a warm trickle in my nose again. I scrambled up and rushed to the restroom. It took several soaked tissues before the bleeding finally stopped. By the time I left the restroom, boarding had already begun. Leo, along with Jessica and my parents, had already gone through. Once inside the plane, I didn't see them again. After landing in Clifton, I didn't waste any time and headed straight for Clifton University. The university has strict security, but I had taken classes here before and knew a few teachers. The security guard recognized me and would usually let me in. But when I got to the gate, I saw them again, Jessica and Leo. They were standing in the guard booth. Jessica was holding an ice cream, talking to Leo. When she saw me, she immediately ran out and called to me. "I made a bet with my brother that you'd show up right after us." I knew it. I went straight to the guard's desk to sign in, not even looking up as I muttered, "Oh, do you want me to congratulate you on winning?" Jessica took another bite of her ice cream. After watching me finish signing in, she spoke with a tone of regret. "Lily, you want to get on campus? You can't, unless you're a student or faculty. The words "none of your business" were on the tip of my tongue. But then I met the guard's strange gaze, and a bad feeling washed over me. Sure enough, the next moment, Leo spoke in a slow, deliberate voice. "Allowing outsiders on campus is irresponsible and a threat to student and faculty safety. I had a word with President Ford. Exceptions shouldn't be made for things like this." The President Ford he mentioned was the president of Clifton U. The security guard looked at me, his expression troubled. Clearly, his hands were tied. Jessica said guiltily, "It's all my fault. I told my brother I was a little scared to see you, so he—" "Lily, maybe you should find a different job." My hands, hanging at my sides, clenched into fists. "Ismail here. Maybe you should get a new pair of eyes." The smile froze on her face. Her complexion paled slightly, and she retreated behind Leo. 7 years ago, when I had just returned to the family, she framed me for something. I didn't bother explaining. I just threw a fruit knife at her and nearly took out one of her eyes. I guess she couldn't forget that, either. She finally fell silent, clutching Leo's arm and trembling as she stared at me warily. Leo held her protectively, his expression guarded. For years, ever since I injured Jessica's eye 7 years ago, Leo and my parents were all the same. The moment there was any friction between me and Jessica, they would immediately rush to protect her, as if I were some terrifying monster that was going to eat her. I looked at them calmly, until Jessica, looking both scared and defiant, shot me a fierce glare before turning and running back onto campus. I couldn't get in anymore, so there was no point in staying. As I turned to leave, Leo chased after me. He blocked my path, his cold eyes staring at me. "Lily, what more do you want?" Shouldn't that be my question for them? I did exactly what their precious Jessica wanted. I moved out so she wouldn't have to be afraid of me anymore. I'm living in my own apartment, doing my own thing, waiting for my own death. So what more do they want? I stared at Leo in silence for a long time. I don't know why. Maybe the blazing sun was making me dizzy. I suddenly said, completely out of the blue. Back then, she was the one who tore up Dad's important file first. She threw it in my room to frame me. That's why I got angry and hurt her eye. Leo's brow furrowed tightly. "Do you really think I was tired. I'd been back with the family for 7 years, and I'd fought with Jessica for 7 years. I'd fought with my parents for 7 years, and with Leo for 7 years. But today, I didn't want to fight anymore. So, I just cut him off softly. I'm just saying. I'm not asking you to believe me." Leo was momentarily stunned. It had been so long, years, since I had spoken to him so calmly. I went to the curb to hail a cab, and he chased after me again. "Lily, what do you need to get on campus for?" I knew he didn't really care about me. He just wanted to make absolutely sure that I wasn't going to hurt Jessica. I ignored him and opened the back door of the taxi. Behind me, Leo's voice was still annoyed, but there seemed to be a new note of urgency. "Your face is as white as a ghost. Have you gotten checked out? Hanging around those places all day, you probably picked up something nasty." It was always like this. I wasn't worthy of a single kind word from him. I closed the car door, completely shutting out the voice from outside the window. Late that night, as I lay in bed, drifting in and out of consciousness, that letter floated before my eyes again. This time, it was completely blank, not a single word on it. I stared at it for a long time, and it didn't disappear. I wasn't fully lucid, and for a moment, I even thought it was just keeping me company because I was lonely. But soon I remembered. I had promised the owner of the letter that I would get his piggy bank. I had broken my promise. Even though I felt bad, I told him what had happened. I apologized and said I probably couldn't help him anymore. Maybe if I kept trying, I could find a way into the school eventually. But I didn't have many days left. If it hadn't been for the request from the dead, I might have already passed away last night. It felt like my nose was bleeding again, and my head was spinning. I didn't have the strength to write. I spoke in fits and starts, but thankfully, it seemed like he could hear me. After a while, words slowly appeared on the letter. Just a few short words, "It's okay." So, I guess that was the end of it. I closed my eyes in relief, my consciousness sinking deeper and deeper. It was a hot summer night, yet all I felt was cold. I fumbled around but couldn't find a blanket. The letter was still there. It drifted down, light as a feather, and rested against my face. I didn't feel the rough, cool touch of paper. In my daze, I felt something warm and soft. It felt like a gentle hug, like a broad, comforting hand. In my blurry state, I turned over and hugged the letter. It was as if I had fallen into a warm embrace. I opened my eyes, half awake, and saw his face, unable to tell if it was real or a dream. He was lying beside me, holding me, looking down at me, still looking like the 19-year-old boy, the arrogant, stubborn, despised boy who had died at 19, with a mangled face and dismembered limbs. I think I might have died. That must be why I was seeing him, someone who had been dead for so long. I met Evan when I was 13. I had just started 8th grade. Because I was a preemie, I was short, not very smart, and had trouble concentrating. I was frequently bullied by the girls in my class, and by some troublemakers from outside the school. I tried talking to a teacher, but my grades were at the bottom of the class, and no teacher likes a failing student. My homeroom teacher told me, "Lily, you need to pay more attention in class. Stop dragging down the class average, and stop tattling all the time. You need to get along with your classmates and stay away from the troublemakers outside of school." I got a long lecture, and had to write a 500-word apology. By the time I left school, it was almost dark. At the corner outside the school gate, those same troublemakers were waiting for me again. In my pocket was the financial aid check I had just received. I was supposed to take it home to my foster mother to cover our expenses for the next month. I stood just inside the school gates as the security guard impatiently urged me on. "Hurry up and leave. We're closing the gates." That's when Evan walked past me. He was a notorious figure at school, the arrogant and reckless badass everyone hated. The rumor was that before he was even 10, he had beaten the director of the orphanage so badly he was left disabled. At 13, he got into a fight with another boy and nearly stabbed him through the heart. Everyone hated him, but everyone was also afraid of him and kept their distance. I stood frozen inside the gate. Just as he was about to walk out, on some strange impulse, I started following closely behind him and left the school grounds. That day, the troublemakers glared at me, but they didn't stop me, because their leader was the same boy Evan had almost stabbed through the heart. I got a taste of safety, so after that, I started doing my homework at school every day. I would wait for Evan, who was always the last one to leave, and then follow closely behind him as he slowly made his way out. This went on for a couple of weeks, until one evening. I had followed him for a good distance, making sure the troublemakers weren't behind us, and was about to turn onto a different street to go home. Evan, who had been walking ahead of me as if he hadn't noticed a thing, suddenly turned around and called out to me nonchalantly, "Hey." My heart leaped into my throat, and I instinctively wanted to bolt. My mind was flooded with all the bloody rumors about him that circulated around the school. Until he spoke again, his voice lazy. "Don't you think you should pay me some protection money?" I was too scared to run. After a long pause, I took off my backpack with trembling hands and held it out to him. The boy's expression faltered for a second. Then he let out a soft laugh. I didn't have much money, so I couldn't pay for his protection, but I cautiously offered to buy him breakfast and carry his backpack instead. He seemed amused by the idea and silently agreed, letting me continue to walk with him to and from school. A rumor started spreading around school that Evan was dating a dim-witted blockhead. Everyone knew that blockhead was me. It was common knowledge at school that I was a preemie with a low IQ. The rumors flew, and the principal, furious, called in my foster mother and Evan's foster father. My homeroom teacher shook her head and sighed. "It's one thing to not care about your studies, but for a young girl to start dating, is there any hope for her?" My foster mother, embarrassed, called me a worthless, boy-crazy charity case and raised her hand to slap me. Evan stepped in front of me. He still had that same casual, unbothered look on his face as he smiled. "I'm the one chasing her, and she hasn't even said yes yet. Go easy on her, you don't want to scare her off. Then she'll really never go out with me." Evan's foster father, having lost face, grabbed an umbrella from a nearby teacher and swung it directly at Evan's face. I watched the boy's body flinch. A long, red welt appeared on his face, and he couldn't open his eyes for a while. Everyone at school said Evan was chasing me. The people who used to bully me started avoiding me. I couldn't have been happier. I went from being the outcast to being one half of a pair of outcasts who walked to and from school with Evan. From middle school all the way through high school graduation. And then we both ended up at the same university. A regular state school that wasn't ranked anywhere. For 5 years, the rumors about Evan chasing me never stopped. We were still outcasts, still the odd pair that was always together. Until I was 19, a sophomore in college, when the vice director of the orphanage suddenly came to find me. He said he had matched my blood sample and records and had found my family. He told me excitedly, "Your parents and your brother are ecstatic. They said they're coming to get you very soon." That night, I told Evan. He sat with me on a bench outside the school all night. We were both abandoned kids, but no one doesn't dream of returning to their real home. My foster mother wasn't good to me, and his foster father was the same. I asked him, "Do you want to come with me? Until you find your family, you can share mine." He turned his head to look at me and, just like the first time we met, gave a soft laugh. "What makes you so sure your family will accept me?" I said seriously, "They will. My birth parents have to be the best people in the world." He still had that indifferent look, smiling without saying another word. But later, I waited for months, and the vice director never showed up again. Evan went with me to the orphanage, and outside the director's office, we overheard everything. My birth parents were well off. The director got greedy and switched my records with his nieces. His niece had been living with my family, in my place, for almost half a year. Evan was calmer than I was. He recorded everything, called the police, and got my birth parents' contact information. I can hardly bear to think about what happened next. I was waiting for my parents to come get me, but the director, who was in custody, sent people after me and Evan. Evan, his face covered in blood, told me to run out of the alley and call the police. By the time I came back with the police, that's what I saw. The arrogant, stubborn, despised 19-year-old boy. He had become a corpse with a mangled face and missing limbs. The orphanage director never meant to kill anyone, he just sent a mentally ill man to take out his anger for him. But someone with a mental illness has no control over their actions. Evan told me to leave him and run out of the alley. Not so I could call the police, but so I could live. I woke up from the dream with a start. I was drenched in sweat. The wind blew in, and my face felt ice cold. I sat up in bed, gasping for air, but still felt like I was suffocating. The letter that had disappeared slowly reappeared in the air. I stared at it, my voice suddenly catching. If I had known, I never would have looked for my family. The letter hung silently in the air, no words appearing for a long time. Letting the school badass everyone avoided die at 19, I felt truly guilty. Even though I really didn't want to go through any more trouble, my conscience wouldn't let me rest. I spoke again. "If it really comes down to it, I'll waste one more day and climb the wall to get it for you. But it's really not dignified. Can you give me a bigger cut of the money if I get it? When I die, there will definitely be no one to burn offerings for me." The paper floated in the air, swaying gently twice. Across 7 years of time, I thought I saw Evan let out another soft laugh. After a while, words appeared on the letter. "You don't have to climb the wall. It's actually under the osmanthus tree outside the north gate." My bad, I wasn't clear. As for the money, how about 60-40 your favor? I paused for a moment. Then I remembered what he had told me before. It was indeed under the osmanthus tree at Clifton U. The only osmanthus tree at the university was just outside the north gate, no need to enter the campus. So, I guess I couldn't really blame him for not being clear. My brain doesn't work that well, I can be a bit slow sometimes. But no one likes to admit they're not smart. So, I didn't say anything else. I just took my pen and wrote one word on it. K. A response appeared on the letter quickly. "Not enough? Best I can do is 70-30 your favor." How much money could possibly be in his piggy bank? I found it funny, and also a little sad. The question circled in my mind countless times. I wanted to ask if he was doing okay over there, but in the end I held back. Someone who's dead probably isn't doing okay, right? I put the sleeping pills I had with me away again. I thought, I'll just endure one more day. This time, it really is the last day. If I can't find that piggy bank this time, I'm really giving up. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom to wash up. The mirror reflected a face so pale it was starting to look eerie. The increasingly frequent warmth in my nose, the dull, throbbing pain in my head, was gradually getting worse. I remembered what Leo had said to me that day. "Your face is as white as a ghost. You probably picked up something nasty." I braced myself against the sink, steadying my breathing in the dead silence. "It's okay. I've been ignored for years. I'm used to it." I took a cab and went to Clifton University again. This time everything went unusually smoothly. Following Evan's directions, I easily found the golden osmanthus tree outside the north gate. The north gate was the quietest side entrance, with the fewest students and faculty coming and going, so no one paid any attention to me. I had brought tools, and after digging for about half an hour, I actually unearthed a piggy bank. It was made of wood, like it was handmade. After being buried in the dirt for so many years, it still hadn't rotted. The surface was covered in mud and looked ancient. My heart suddenly started racing. I quickly pulled it out and held it in my hands. Before I could take a closer look, Leo's usual cold, deep voice sounded from behind me. "What are you digging for?" My heart sank. I scrambled to my feet, instinctively hiding the hand holding the piggy bank behind my back. Leo took a few steps closer, his expression grim. Something of Evan's? A growing sense of unease filled me. I backed away, step by step, until my back hit the tree trunk. So many years had passed, but he still remembered Evan. Right after Evan died, I fell gravely ill, with a fever so high I was delirious. When Leo hastily came to pick me up, he promised he would take care of Evan's final arrangements. But later, after I had recovered and repeatedly asked about Evan's ashes, he finally told me impatiently, who would actually bother with that? A thug who nearly killed someone before he was 10. His death was good riddance. Evan died for me. Leo didn't know, and he didn't care. He and my parents just said Evan was bad luck. Just like they thought I was bad luck. That my decision to study mortuary science and become a mortician after graduation was bad luck. I clutched the piggy bank tightly, unable to retreat any further. I denied it instinctively. "No." Leo frowned. "What are you hiding? You think I'm going to snatch some broken junk you dug up?" "I came looking for you because I wanted to." I watched him with wary eyes. Before he could finish, Jessica burst out of the school, her face beaming. She ran straight to Leo, her tone chiding. "Bro, why didn't you tell me you were coming to see me? I told you I can take care of myself. Aren't you and Mom and Dad going back to South City yet?" She hugged Leo's arm, her voice soft and sweet, chattering nonstop. She pulled him toward the school. Leo could never refuse her. He just glanced over at me and said, "Wait for me there for a minute. I'm not an idiot." The moment they went inside, I grabbed the piggy bank and hurried away. My nose started bleeding again. As I ran toward the street, I fumbled for a tissue and pressed it to my nose. But somehow Leo had turned back. Seeing that I hadn't waited for him, he chased after me angrily. I was terrified he would take the piggy bank from me, just like at the airport, when he angrily told me to cancel my ticket. And at the university, when he talked to the president specifically to keep me out. I heard his approaching footsteps and his voice, seething with anger. "Lily, you stop right there. I have something to tell you." The more he chased, the more frantically I ran. The summer wind felt like a scorching wave, making my head spin. A sharp pain shot through my head and joints again. I thought of the terminally ill patients I had seen at the hospital, convulsing in agony on their beds, even painkillers losing their effect, a living death. I didn't want to wait for that day. As soon as I burned the piggy bank for Evan, I could be free. As long as Leo didn't catch me, as long as he didn't take what was in my hands. I was running too fast. By the time I reached the street and frantically tried to hail a cab, I suddenly realized the tissue in my hand was gone. It was stained with blood. My heart leaped into my throat. When I turned around, I saw Leo standing not far behind me. He was only a few steps away, about to catch up. But he stopped there, not coming any closer, not even looking at me. In his hand, he held the tissue I had dropped. Almost the entire tissue was soaked in blood. Crimson, jarring. Or, in his words, probably unlucky, dirty. He looked down at the tissue. His expression was stiff and confused, like he was looking at something he couldn't comprehend. Something too strange and unbelievable. The north gate was remote, and taxis were rare. I had to stand by the road for a while, watching him with wary, defensive eyes. After a long moment, he finally looked at me. His voice, which had always been so cold, was suddenly hoarse. Where did this blood? What's wrong with? He was now in charge of the family company, a veteran of the business world for years. A decisive and eloquent man, yet here he was, fumbling for words. It seemed as if he was flustered, afraid something was wrong with me. I just found it laughable. He looked at me, staring at my face. It seemed he had finally noticed something. Maybe it was the dried blood around my nose. Or maybe, as he had said, it was my ghostly complexion, as if I had picked up something unclean. After a while, it was as if he suddenly snapped back to reality. He rushed towards me, urgent and stunned, even stumbling a little. I suddenly remembered many years ago, when he first found me. He rushed to the university late at night to pick me up, running towards me in the same frantic way. He apologized to me, saying he was sorry for letting me be lost for so many years. He said that from now on, he would do everything in his power to make it up to me, to take care of me. Back then, I believed him. And now, as he rushed towards me in a panic, he blurted out, "Lily, are you sick? Have you been to a hospital? Let's go to the hospital, I'll go with you." This time, I didn't hesitate for a second. I flagged down a taxi that finally came by and quickly got in. I wasn't willing to say even one more word to him. The moment the door closed, I heard Leo's desperate voice. "Lily, can we just talk, please?" I suddenly thought how strange. He didn't like me before. Even when I stayed at the house all day, I'd barely see him from morning to night. Now that I've moved out, it seems I run into him everywhere I go. The brother who couldn't stand the sight of me is now acting like this, just when I've finally given up. Talk. I found it laughable. I was back in that family for 7 years, and my so-called parents and brother wouldn't even give me back my own last name. What was there left between us that couldn't have been said in those 7 long years? Why wait until now to talk? I refused to look at him again. I just held the piggy bank carefully and told the driver to go. Leo threw himself against the car door, his expression frantic, desperately pounding on the window. His face was contorted with a terror I had never seen before. His lips moved urgently, but the car window completely blocked out his voice. The taxi pulled away. I turned my head, unwilling to look at him any longer. I just held the piggy bank tightly, opened my phone, and booked the next flight to a coastal city. After telling the driver to take me straight to the airport, I went inside and passed through security. Leo didn't follow me. Maybe he couldn't catch up, or maybe he gave up. To me, it didn't matter anymore. Burn the piggy bank, then go to the sea. This time I could finally be free. My soul would stay in the sea. It's vast and free there, the same place Evan's ashes were scattered. Maybe there, our souls will meet again. I was sitting in the airport departure lounge. I carefully placed the piggy bank on my lap, and only then did I finally let out a sigh of relief and have a moment to examine it. It was covered in too much dirt, and after so many years, it was clearly old. The slot for putting things in was completely clogged with soil, so I couldn't see anything inside. I wondered if the contents would still be intact for Evan after I burned it. In my peripheral vision, the letter floated before my eyes again. The people sitting next to me didn't react clearly, only I could see it. I was shocked and blurted out, "Aren't you afraid of the light?" Before, he only ever came to me at night, when I was in my bedroom. Evan didn't seem to understand what I meant. After a moment, he replied on the letter, confused, "Why would I be afraid of the light?" I held up the piggy bank for the letter to see, feeling a bit awkward. "That's what it says in books." The letter trembled, as if he was laughing. New words floated up. "The people who write books are alive. Do they know more than I do?" That seemed to make sense. I felt a little sad, but also found it kind of interesting. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. After all these years, it seemed he was still the only one who could make me smile. The person next to me looked at me, their expression horrified. I didn't mean to scare anyone, so I immediately got up and found a quiet corner to sit in. I looked at the letter. "Should I take the piggy bank to the sea and burn it for you there?" Evan didn't have a grave. He had once told me that after he died, He wanted his ashes scattered in the ocean. He said being underground was too stuffy, it was better to be in the sea, where it was vast and free. After he passed away, his ashes were left at the funeral home, unclaimed. It was only after I had barely recovered from my illness that I collected his ashes and scattered them in the sea. The letter replied, "Okay, thank you." A few years in the underworld, and he'd become quite polite. After we agreed, I asked, a little worried, "The ocean is so big. If I burn it by the sea, will you definitely receive it?" He replied, "Yes. The ocean connects to the heavens and the earth, and it can also connect with the spirits of the dead." I still didn't feel completely reassured and asked without thinking, "Would it be better if I brought it to you myself?" After all, I was planning on jumping into the sea anyway. The letter froze in mid-air. It stayed motionless for a long, long time. Finally, my name was written out, almost stroke by stroke, incredibly slowly. Lily. As if he was calling my name, his tone filled with worry and unease. Oh, he probably didn't know yet that I was about to die. I gave a weak laugh. Just kidding. The letter didn't respond for a long time. Just when I thought it was about to disappear, new words appeared on it, even messier than before. It seemed he was a little upset, not funny. I watched the words that kept appearing and fading. To be honest, the fact that I was dying wasn't something I was completely indifferent to. The pain in my head started again, throbbing and intense. The pain was in my bones, in my gums. The doctor had said that in the late stages of leukemia, it's normal for abnormal white blood cells to infiltrate the bone marrow and other tissues, causing severe pain in the bones, joints, and elsewhere. The pain always came without warning. My body curled up uncontrollably, and I wanted to crouch down. The letter was still floating in front of me. I wasn't sure if he could talk to me, and I definitely didn't know if he could see me. A drop of blood from my nose fell onto my collar. I quickly turned my back to the letter. Then, using the excuse of going to the restroom, I hurried away. The letter didn't follow. I went into a stall in the restroom and locked the door. I blindly took a few painkillers and swallowed them dry. But the medicine was getting less effective each day. I was still in pain, curled up in the stall. I was so weak and dizzy that I passed out. Luckily, when I woke up, it wasn't past the boarding time yet. An announcement was calling my name. I rushed out, splashed my face with cold water, and went through the gate. I didn't see the letter again, and felt a secret sense of relief. If possible, I didn't want him to see me in such a wretched state. My phone was ringing. It was a call from Leo. I declined it, and he immediately sent a series of texts. "Lily, where are you? Listen to me. Tell me where you are. Whatever it is, we can talk it out. Don't play games with your health." Honestly, it was disgusting. I didn't reply. He sent another message. "Mom and Dad cooked dinner. They're waiting for you. Come back to South City with me, okay? From now on, it'll just be the four of us. No Jessica. Is that okay? Is that okay?" What a generous, charitable thing to say. I deleted the messages and then blocked his number, along with the numbers of everyone else in that family. On the verge of death. The so-called family affection I had longed for so many years, I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need anything anymore. I walked through the boarding gate and onto the plane. There was nothing left for me in this world. The plane was taking me to the sea. I was going there to meet someone who was already dead. Leo realized that Lily had truly disappeared. She had been acting strangely, digging up something under an osmanthus tree outside Clifton U. Just as strangely as she had suddenly run off to Clifton and tried to get onto the campus. Leo felt that something was very wrong with her lately. But over the years, they had barely spoken to each other. He couldn't guess what she was thinking, nor could he bring himself to ask or show concern. Their relationship had always been stiff, awkward, and strange. It started 7 years ago, when he broke his promise and didn't take care of Evan's final arrangements. At that time, Lily had a complete breakdown and had a huge fight with him. When the family told her to stay home and continue recovering, she practically destroyed the house. She cursed out her parents and him, her brother, calling them hypocrites, disgusting, and sanctimonious, saying they made her sick. She even threw a fruit knife at Jessica when she came to her room late at night to try and calm her down, nearly destroying one of her eyes. She was so unruly, so rude, so crazy. The family all thought she had become this way because of that thug, Evan, who had nearly killed someone before he was 10. He had corrupted their little girl. Their mother couldn't accept that her once lively and well-behaved daughter had turned into this grim and fierce person. The little girl who used to love pink, princess dresses, and pretty cakes. Now she hated sweets, and even the decorations by her bed were all in dull, lifeless black and gray. She was nothing like the little girl they had lost, Lucy. In comparison, Jessica was so much like her. Jessica loved everything pink, pretty hair clips, and cake. She would go shopping with their mother and to the salon. She would tell their mother all the interesting things that happened at school. Even her tastes and what she wouldn't eat were exactly the same as Lucy's. So after Lily came back, Jessica was supposed to leave. When Leo and their father were about to send her away, their mother chased after them, grabbed Jessica's arm, and nearly had a heart attack on the spot. She sobbed, "It's just raising one more child. The family isn't short on money. We can just treat it as sponsoring a student. Let her stay here for now." It started to rain. Jessica and their mother hugged and cried in the front yard. Lily stood silently on the steps outside the villa's entrance, watching them with a cold, indifferent expression. Their mother glanced at her from a distance and took a frightened step back. Jessica allowed their mother to live in a dream, to pretend her daughter was still the way she was before she got lost. But Lily's appearance, their mother found it hard to accept. And so for all these years, Jessica continued to live with them. They said Lily was the real daughter, and Jessica was just staying with them. But was that really the case? Jessica had a pink luxury car and designer bags worth hundreds of thousands. Even a trip back to her university required the whole family to escort her. And Lily? What did Lily have? Leo held the blood-soaked tissue in his hand. He watched as Lily got into the taxi and left without a moment's hesitation, her face cold and indifferent. He suddenly thought, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this at all. The taxi sped away. Suddenly, Leo was seized by a terrible premonition. Lily's increasingly pale face wasn't just strange, maybe it was because she was sick, seriously sick. Leo remembered when Lily was little, before she got lost. She fell down on the way home from school and scraped her knee a little. She would come home crying and screaming, telling her parents, telling her big brother. But now about her health, about her illness. She clearly had no desire to tell them a single word. It felt like an invisible hand had suddenly clenched around Leo's heart. He felt suffocated, unable to breathe. He couldn't pinpoint why. He desperately wanted to chase after Lily, but there were too few taxis passing by the north gate. His own car was parked at the south gate. By the time he managed to flag down a cab, the car Lily was in was long gone. He had no idea where she might have gone, not even a single guess. If it were Jessica, he would have found her in no time. He knew Jessica's favorite salon in South City, and the address of her best friend's house. He knew the mall Jessica loved to go to when she was studying at Clifton. He had the contact information for her best friend, and he knew the hair salon where she had a membership. Their mother would constantly remind him to remember, to memorize it all. Jessica was young and naive, she needed adults to look after her. But Lily. Suddenly, besides panic, Leo felt a sense of fear. He knew almost nothing about Lily. When did it start? When did the foster child, Jessica, take up all of their family's attention and care? Leo didn't know where to find Lily. Lily was sick, maybe she would go to a hospital. But he searched every hospital, big and small, in Clifton and couldn't find her. He couldn't find her anywhere. As evening approached, he began to realize that Lily might have already left Clifton. Leo contacted his assistant and asked him to check Lily's ticket purchase records for trains and planes. The assistant quickly replied, having found the tickets Lily had bought. But there wasn't just one ticket, there were 3. All for that afternoon or evening. One to South City, one to Bayside, one to North City, each thousands of miles apart. She couldn't possibly go to so many places in one day. Most likely she did it on purpose, so the family couldn't track her. Leo stood on the brightly lit street as the summer night wind blew, sending a shiver down his spine. He whispered to himself, "Does she hate us that much?" On the other end of the line, his assistant asked, confused, "Mr. Davis, what did you say?" Leo hung up the phone. Then he mumbled to himself, trying to believe it. She must have gone home. She must have gone back to South City. Yes, she went home. Leo returned to South City, back home. He pushed open the door, but there was no sign of Lily. His mother was sitting on the sofa, chatting on the phone with Jessica. She was smiling so wide her eyes crinkled. Sweetheart, are you trying to sweet-talk me again? You need more money, don't you? All right, I'll send it to you. His father, reading the newspaper, glanced over. You just spoil her. She's getting more and more extravagant. His words were a reprimand, but his tone was full of indulgence. Leo walked over. He dropped his briefcase on the coffee table with a sudden dull thud. He said, his face expressionless, Lily should be back soon. Get her room ready. The smile on his mother's face vanished instantly. The woman's expression stiffened, and she quickly became flustered. Oh, is she coming back? It was as if Lily coming back, coming home to stay, was the strangest thing in the world. So strange it was terrifying. Leo met her eyes and nodded. Yes. Is that a problem? The phone call hadn't ended yet, and Jessica started screaming on the other end. Lily's coming back. No way. Mom, your heart condition hasn't even recovered. She touches dead people all day. Who knows if she even washed the blood off before coming back? No, she's not allowed to come back. Leo knew his mother's heart had always been weak. Especially during the years Lucy was missing, his mother was sick with worry. She had several severe heart attacks and almost died. Later, it was Jessica's cheerful and charming nature that helped stabilize their mother's condition. That was also why Leo had always gone along with his mother's wishes and indulged Jessica. But now, for some reason, he suddenly lost control. His hands clenched into fists, the veins on the back of them bulging. He roared, "Who the hell do you think you are? Since when do you get to decide if she comes back or not?" The other end of the line went silent. After a moment, the sound of hurt sobs could be heard. His mother immediately started comforting her. "Jessica, your brother didn't mean that." She turned and shot Leo an angry look. "How could you talk to your sister like that? Apologize." Leo looked at her, at his own mother. This mother who had lived in a dream for 7 years, unwilling to face reality. After a long time, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Mom, do you even remember who your daughter is?" His mother was suddenly speechless. His father, still holding the newspaper, also froze. Leo let out a soft laugh, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. "Dad, Mom, wake up. We all need to wake up." His mother's hand trembled. The phone in her hand slipped and fell to the floor. Leo sat down on the sofa across from them. The living room fell into a deathly silence. For a long time, none of them spoke. The long summer night was perfectly still, like a silent torture for them all. "Do you really remember who your daughter is? Do you really remember who your sister is? Do you really remember that the one who should have the family name is Lily, not Jessica?" 7 years. It had been so long. It seemed like they had all forgotten. During the years Lucy was missing, their mother bought countless beautiful dresses and pretty Barbie dolls for her. But later, when Lily came back, she said she didn't like those delicate, soft things anymore. Their mother was heartbroken, but Jessica was overjoyed and accepted them all. She would say sweetly, "Thank you, Mommy." And so the child with the sweet words got all the candy, all the love. But really, was that how it was supposed to be? For a very long time, none of them moved. Until it was almost midnight, the hands of the clock on the wall approaching 12. Only then did their mother stand up, dazed and lost. She walked towards the kitchen, muttering, "She probably hasn't had dinner yet. I'll go make her something. She'll be back soon." The housekeeper came over to help, but their mother pushed her away. "I'll cook for her myself. Lily loves my cooking the most." The refrigerator was fully stocked with ingredients. Their mother set up the cutting board, washed the knife, and cleaned the pot. But as she looked at the vast array of ingredients, she didn't know what to choose. Before she was 10, before she went missing, Lily loved sweet and sour pork ribs and fried meatballs, just like Jessica. But the 19-year-old Lily who was found and brought back would never touch the sweet and sour pork ribs and fried meatballs on the dinner table. Jessica would eat until her face shone, and holding the plate with the last few ribs and meatballs, she would tilt her head and ask Lily, "Aren't you going to have any?" Lily wouldn't even spare them a glance. She would only eat a little of the vegetables in front of her. She had no preference for any type of vegetable, she would eat whatever was on the table. As their mother thought back, she began to remember. Not only had Lily's tastes changed, but the number of times she had eaten at home in the past 7 years could be counted on one hand. A sharp pain suddenly pierced her heart, and her mind was filled with Leo's question. Mom, do you even remember who your daughter is? The phone rang again. Jessica was calling. Their mother didn't answer, but the phone kept ringing and ringing. When she finally picked up, Jessica's voice was full of displeasure. Mom, hurry up and transfer the money. My friends and I are waiting to use it. The mother stared blankly at the phone screen, only speaking after a long moment. Didn't I just transfer you 100,000 at the beginning of the month? Jessica shrieked. What can you even do with 100,000? That's gone after one dinner. The mother suddenly thought of Lily again. Her own daughter, who hadn't asked for a single cent from the family in the 7 years she had been back. The hand holding the phone trembled more and more violently. She said distractedly, if it were Lily, 100,000 could. On the other end of the line, she could hear the laughter of men and women. Jessica, I told you the family's getting cheap. Are they saving money to support that slow-witted sister of yours? Jessica had probably never been so embarrassed. Her voice instantly became shrill with anger and shame. Just transfer it to me now. Lily hangs out with dead people all day and is so stingy with her money. What does she even need money for? The mother's hand clenched tightly. Her body trembled, and she almost collapsed. After a long time, she finally murmured, before my Lily was lost, she was also raised like a precious princess. Just like you are now. All of this should have been hers. On the other end was the sound of a group of people laughing, and Jessica's furious retorts. Slowly, the mother's eyes began to redden. After a long while, the father stumbled in and took the phone. The call was disconnected. The sharp, angry voice on the other end, followed by terrified sobs, abruptly stopped. The mother's hands were still trembling. She haphazardly grabbed some ingredients, and beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. The summer is getting hotter and hotter, she thought. Is the air conditioner broken? Why am I sweating so much? She chopped the vegetables and put them in the wok. By the time a full table of dishes was ready, it was nearly 1 in the morning. The mother turned and looked at Leo and her husband, who were still sitting motionless on the sofa. She said in a hoarse voice, Leo, go check the door. Leo looked at her. Under the lights, his face was deathly pale. It was impossible to tell if his eyes held coldness, anger, or pain and guilt. After a long time he finally spoke. She's not coming back. In fact, from the moment that taxi sped away before his eyes, from the moment Lily rushed into the car, as if he were some kind of monster, not even willing to look at him again, he knew. She was gone. He couldn't catch her, couldn't find her, and she would never come back. Leo left the house. In a daze, he spent the entire night searching for Lily again. Lily had bought a small apartment with a down payment, near the funeral home. The location was considered unlucky, but it was cheap. She rarely stayed at home these past few years. She probably lived in that small apartment most of the time. Leo didn't know the address and had to go through a lot of trouble to find it. He went there, but Lily was gone. The property manager told him that Lily had already paid off the mortgage and had listed the apartment for sale with a real estate agent. She had drawn up a will at a law firm, donating all the money from the sale of the house after her death. Leo couldn't understand. He knew Lily was hurt and had left. But what did will and after her death mean? She was only 26. Her birthday was just last month. Leo looked at the property manager blankly. Why is she selling the apartment? Why would she make a will so early? The property manager gave him a strange look and asked, "And you are?" When Leo spoke, he seemed a little guilty and averted his gaze. "I'm her brother." The man's expression turned to shock. She has a brother? Why was Lily selling her apartment? Why did she have a will? He, her own brother, had no idea. So why did he think a property manager would know? In the property management office, several pairs of probing, scrutinizing eyes fell on him. Leo felt utterly humiliated and practically fled. He wandered in a daze all night and, early the next morning, went to the funeral home. Lily was a solitary person, and had never been close with her colleagues. Everyone at the funeral home knew she was a loner. So when this man suddenly showed up, claiming to be Lily's brother, everyone assumed he was a con artist or mentally unstable. No one would talk to him. Leo was kicked out. After several days of searching, he found nothing. Until the third day, when he suddenly received a call from the hospital. They informed him that Lily had late-stage leukemia and didn't have much time left. She repeatedly insisted that her condition not be disclosed to anyone, but I required her to leave an emergency contact number. After much consideration, she still put down your number. I thought about it for a long time, and it occurred to me that perhaps by leaving your number, she secretly hoped you would find out. Anyone in this situation would likely be terrified and hope for some support. The voice on the other end of the line faded in and out, growing more and more distant. Leo stood frozen under the blazing sun, but his body felt like an ice sculpture in a blizzard. Leo couldn't move. She sold her house, left a will. She went alone to some unknown, distant place. It was only at this moment that Leo suddenly understood. She was going to meet her death. An immense fear, like a monstrous beast, engulfed him. An invisible hand gripped his throat, and he felt increasingly suffocated. He wanted to move, to cry for help, to rush to Lily's side. But he just couldn't move at all. She said not to tell anyone, but she left your number. Perhaps she hoped you would know, hoped for some support. Lily, hurry up and apologize to Jessica. Lily, you're just creepy and morbid from top to bottom. You barely seem alive anymore. Lily, cancel your ticket. Lily, stop following us. She probably hoped for some support. Leo struggled, gasping for breath. But he still couldn't breathe. The traffic flowed like a river, and the world spun around him. He opened his mouth, wanting to call Lily's name. And then suddenly his body swayed, and he collapsed to the ground. Leo's executive assistant was known throughout the company as a highly capable man. In just a few short days he had, at Leo's request, investigated everything. He brought a thick file folder to Leo's hospital room. What he found was Leo, staring blankly into space, already on a ventilator. Leo's phone was lying next to him, the screen still lit. On it was a photo posted by a netizen. In the photo, the surroundings were dark, and a woman was standing in the deep sea. The water had already reached her waist. The photo was captioned, "Took a picture of the sea during a bonfire party. Only noticed the figure in the background when I looked at it later." The photo was time-stamped with the night Lily disappeared. Nearly a week had passed since then. The assistant didn't recognize the figure, but he had a sinking feeling. If that figure was walking towards death, then now, after a full week had passed, it was clear that no one could have saved her. The documents in the folder detailed the nearly 10 years Lily was missing. She had been sold by human traffickers, then later abandoned by the buyer. After that, she ended up in an orphanage. Because of her developmental delays and low intelligence, she was ostracized and bullied, and eventually left the orphanage. Later, a woman took her home on a whim. Not long after, the foster mother became pregnant with a boy and began to despise her. She would wear discarded pink dresses from other children. On her way home from school, she was harassed by a drunk. She ran home crying to her foster mother, who slapped her across the face. "Where did you steal such a pink dress? You wear things like that, and then blame others for bothering you?" After that, Lily no longer liked pink. She started to prefer black and gray, and long clothes that covered her up, making her look grim and somber. At the dinner table, she once picked up a piece of pork rib. Her little brother burst into tears, and her foster mother slapped the chopsticks out of her hand. After that, she came to like the green vegetables that were always thrown in front of her. For nearly 10 years, it wasn't that she didn't want to be lively and innocent anymore. It was that no one would allow a girl struggling to survive on her own to maintain that kind of carefree innocence. The family wasn't unaware that a child who had been missing for nearly 10 years couldn't possibly be the same as before. They just chose to cover their eyes and live in a dream, to tell themselves that everything was still the same as it used to be, hoping to alleviate the crushing guilt that had weighed on them like a boulder for nearly a decade. And Jessica, the orphanage director's niece. Her parents had died in a car crash while fleeing after committing financial crimes. The director fabricated a tragic, innocent backstory for her. He managed to find out everything about the child the family had lost, all her former likes and dislikes. He had Jessica study, imitate, and then replace her. Leo took the files, his eyes gradually becoming bloodshot. Immense pain, anger, and devastation. In the end, all turned to helplessness. Jessica ran away after learning that Leo had someone investigate everything. The executive assistant told Leo, "Don't worry, sir. I've already sent people to bring her back." Leo looked at him with a vacant expression, his vision filled with a sea of red. Bring Jessica back, and then what? Then what? Would Lily come back then? No, she never would. Never again. Leo coughed violently. He lurched towards the side of the bed, the ventilator coming loose. Suddenly, he vomited a large mouthful of blood. Outside the door, his parents stood there and witnessed everything. The assistant, trembling, revealed the last piece of information he had found. That Mr. Evan who passed away. He was your sister's only friend during those years. The stories about him killing someone were all made up. He was murdered because he helped your sister find her family. From outside the hospital room came a loud thud. His mother stumbled and collapsed, unconscious from grief. Leo, after spitting up blood, stared blankly towards the door. In his gradually blurring vision, he met his father's eyes. Their gazes met, and all that remained was despair. It was too late. It was all too late. The little girl who should have been cherished and fiercely protected by the entire family. She got lost once and came back. But this time she would never come back. I landed in Bayside in the evening. I turned on my phone to find nearly 100 missed calls and unread messages. Without exception, they were all from the family. From my so-called brother and my parents who had barely contacted me in 7 years. Another call came through. After 7 years, it seemed they had suddenly decided to start caring about me. Or maybe they were just afraid that if something happened to me, it would bring shame upon them as parents and a brother. I removed the SIM card and erased all the information from my phone. I went to the beach and left the phone in a fairly obvious spot on the sand. I wouldn't be needing it anymore. Maybe whoever found it could sell it for a little money if they needed it. The letter had guided me here. I looked at the familiar sea, the familiar view. I vaguely remembered that it might have been here, 7 years ago, that I scattered Evan's ashes. The sea was just too big, I couldn't remember the exact spot I'd come to back then. Luckily, the letter remembered. I squatted down by the shore, built a small pyre of driftwood, and placed the piggy bank in the flames. The fire slowly consumed it as the letter floated silently beside me. The sound of the crashing waves was endless. The cool summer night breeze seemed to be guiding me towards the depths of the ocean. In the distance, I could hear faint cheers and laughter. I glanced over and saw a flicker of firelight far away. A crowd of people was gathered in the twilight. There must have been a bonfire party. I watched for a moment longer than I intended. How many years had it been since I had someone by my side? I couldn't remember. I suppose when I walk into the deep ocean, and this messy life comes to an end, no one will care. I watched for a bit longer, then looked away. No words had appeared on the letter for a long time. The last corner of the piggy bank turned to ash. I looked at the letter and said with a half-joking smile, "I did what I said I would. We agreed on 60-40. I'll be there to collect soon, so don't you dare go back on your word." If I could really see him again after death, then maybe death wouldn't be about fear, but the greatest blessing of all. But I knew the chances of that were slim to none. The world of the living is vast. Once two people are truly separated, it's hard to ever meet again. The underworld was probably the same. It wouldn't be that easy to run into someone. The piggy bank turned to ash, and the last flicker of light from the driftwood gradually died out. I stepped into the water. The waves licked at my ankles, luring me further into the deep. The letter suddenly flew in front of my face. I thought he was going to stop me, but he didn't. The paper remained blank. I stood in the deep water, the sea rising past my legs. It just floated beside me, trembling gently in the sea breeze. It was accompanying me, into the deep, towards death, until the water was past my waist. I felt like my body was about to be swept up by a wave and pulled into the depths. Then, hurried words suddenly appeared on the letter. "Maybe you could try again." Try what? He didn't write anything else. Try to be loved? Try to fight a terminal illness in a living hell, knowing you won't live much longer anyway? Try to struggle desperately in a life that has never known luck, only to suffer more in vain? I didn't really want to anymore. So I said softly no. The letter finally drifted down. It gently and listlessly pressed against the side of my face, as if he had pierced through the veil between worlds and was carefully holding me. The night sea was too cold, the wind too strong. It seemed he was trying to give me a little warmth, trying to tell me that death wasn't the answer, that the world wasn't only cold, but a piece of paper has no warmth, and a dead person can no longer warm the living. The letter clung tightly to my face, trembling, trying with all its might. Then finally, exhausted, it was blown away by the sea breeze. The water was about to sweep me off my feet. In the moment before death, my foot suddenly kicked something. It was cold, stiff, yet there seemed to be a faint, residual feeling of flesh. I had been around the dead for so many years, I was all too familiar with this sensation. I quickly realized that what I had kicked was likely a corpse. In the middle of the night, in the ocean, to suddenly kick a body. What a terrifying thing. I could almost hear Leo's furious voice again. Look at you, just creepy and morbid from top to bottom. You barely seem alive anymore. Maybe he wasn't wrong. I wasn't scared. In fact, because the water was too deep and I couldn't see what was at my feet, I reached my hand into the sea, felt for the person's arm, and managed to lift it a little. Through the dark surface of the water, I could finally make it out. The person's deathly white, scar-covered hand and wrist, and then the sleeve of a police uniform. It was a police officer. It didn't look like a suicide, it looked more like he had been murdered. I stared blankly for a long time. I thought about how ridiculous I was. I was about to die myself, yet I seemed to be worried about a corpse, wondering if he might have been someone important. If I just left him here, would the rising tide soon sweep him into the deep sea, where he would disappear without a trace? I looked at the letter, still floating beside me. After a long pause, I spoke, and even I thought it sounded absurd. Hey, you think I should call the police first? The letter silently pressed into my chest, holding me. I couldn't see him, but in that instant, it was as if I saw his face and heard his voice. Just like many years ago, he said, "Lily, do what you want to do. Die or live." I dragged the body to a spot closer to the beach. By the time I figured he probably wouldn't be washed away by the tide again, I was drenched in sweat. The bonfire party in the distance was over. I had no one to ask for help, so I could only retrieve the phone I had left on the beach and call the police. Then I sat on the beach at night, quietly watching the dark sea. The tide roared, yet everything around was perfectly silent. I was soaked through, and the wind blowing on me was a bit cold. But I didn't move. I looked at the letter next to me and said with a self-deprecating laugh, "Don't you feel like I'm having a hard time dying?" The letter didn't respond for a long time. Just as I was getting really tired and about to doze off, words slowly appeared on it. As if a bit awkward, the words were written slowly and hesitantly. "Maybe there's a better future still waiting for you." The school badass who was rumored to have killed someone at 10 was now saying such poetic things. At the most inappropriate time, I let out a soft laugh. He seemed a bit embarrassed and didn't say another word. I didn't have to wait long before the police arrived at the beach. I briefly explained the situation, skipping the details about trying to jump into the sea. I just said I was beachcombing, kicked something, fell, and accidentally discovered the body in the water. The police took my statement and photos of the scene. I noticed one of the officers had a very strange expression. He opened his phone and seemed to be comparing the deceased to a photo. Then they asked me, "Do you have a moment? Would you mind coming to the station with us to give a brief statement?" I didn't really have time, I was in a hurry to die. The feeling of being terminally ill, every extra day I lived was just more suffering. I didn't have to go through this. But looking at the police officers' expressions, it wasn't really a question. Late at night, claiming to have found a body in the sea, I probably had to at least prove that I had nothing to do with the man's death. I sighed and nodded. Okay. It seemed that ever since I was diagnosed and started preparing for death, all sorts of unexpected things kept happening, preventing me from dying smoothly. Maybe my luck was just that bad. Before, when I wanted to live, I couldn't live well. Now that I wanted to die, I couldn't seem to die properly. I went with them to the police station. Fortunately, the police had no intention of making things difficult for me. They thanked me on behalf of the deceased. Then they briefly asked me again about the circumstances of my discovery. After taking down my personal information, they told me I could leave. As I was about to walk out, I took one last look at the body. Over the years, I've seen countless deceased individuals. Before placing the deceased in a coffin, helping with suturing and restoring limbs or facial features is a common task. But I have never seen a deceased person in such a horrifying state. He was missing a leg, and the injuries on both arms were so deep that bone was visible, as if they were about to fall off his body at any moment. There wasn't a single spot of exposed skin that wasn't covered in gruesome scars. His face was bloated from being in the water, and where his eyes should have been, there were only two terrifying, empty sockets. That tragic appearance, in stark contrast to the solemn police uniform he wore, was jarring. I couldn't help but look a few more times. As I walked out, I heard a police officer's grief-stricken and suppressed voice from behind me. Restoration is going to be difficult. And we can't just ask anyone for help. He has a daughter who just started elementary school. It's best not to let the news that his body has been found get out. I had a vague suspicion that he was an undercover cop who had been targeted for revenge. It was late. I pushed open the door of the police station, and the hot, humid summer night air rushed in. I walked out, then suddenly stopped. I turned around, pushed the door open, and went back into the station. Several police officers looked at me in surprise. Without hesitating, I asked tentatively, "Do you need my help?" The officers looked confused, not understanding what I meant. I explained, "I've been a mortician for several years. I know some techniques for body restoration and suturing. If you don't mind, I think I could give it a try." For so many years, I had never willingly told anyone about my profession. Whoever found out always responded with looks of disgust or fear. This was the first time I hadn't hidden it. The police officers hesitated. "Mississippi Lynn, wouldn't that be too much trouble for you?" I continued, "Don't worry, I have no ulterior motives. 7 years ago, I received a great deal of help from the police, so I thought if I had the chance, I could maybe repay the favor in some small way. 7 years ago, the orphanage director had a mentally ill person murder Evan. I couldn't find any solid evidence to incriminate the director, and the murderer, due to his mental illness, escaped all punishment. My family said Evan was a bad influence on me and refused to help me find the real culprit. Evan's foster father just lamented the loss of a dog he could take his anger out on. But a police officer took my case and even paid for a lawyer out of his own pocket. The case was finally solved after more than half a year, and the orphanage director was sentenced to death. I haven't been able to repay that kindness over the years, but I've never forgotten it." A police officer's voice trembled with gratitude. "Mississippi Lynn, thank you so much." When they learned of my profession, their faces showed none of the fear or revulsion I had expected. I stayed at the police station. In a makeshift mortician's workspace, I began to restore the body. I worked as quickly as I could, and in 1 day and 2 nights, I had basically finished the restoration. The missing left leg was replaced with a sutured prosthetic. After that, I stopped. The deceased should be laid to rest and not kept here for too long, because he had been in the water for so long, and his body was so severely mutilated. I did my best, but I felt the result was still not ideal. A female police officer came in to check, and I said guiltily, "I'm sorry, the restoration isn't perfect." The officer walked over to the refrigerated coffin, moved closer, and gently pressed her cheek against his. Perhaps she was afraid of ruining his restored face. She got very close, but their skin didn't actually touch. Looking at her profile, I suddenly thought, maybe she was his lover, or a relative. After a long time, she turned around. Her face was once again a mask of perfect calm, her voice slightly hoarse. "It's already very, very good. Thank you so much, Mississippi Lynn." After a moment, she spoke again. "On behalf of the police department, could I treat you to a meal?" I looked at her face, so clearly full of grief yet forced into a state of calm. I suddenly remembered the night Evan died. That night in the alley, when I rushed back, I saw his horribly mangled body too. I think I could understand the intense pain she was feeling right now. The words of refusal were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't say them. I was silent for a long time, then nodded. Okay. We had a meal together. For nearly an hour, we barely said a word. In the end, she just repeated what she had said before. Thank you so much. I was gravely ill, and my appetite was terrible. But at that meal, I actually managed to eat half a bowl of rice. When we left the restaurant, she gave me a set of clothes. She said, I didn't do a great job picking these out. I hope you don't mind. You got your clothes all wet at the beach. I wanted to say that my clothes were soaked that night not because I was pulling a body out of the water. But in the end, I just took them and said thank you. I went to the curb to hail a cab. As a taxi pulled up, she suddenly called out to me from behind. Mississippi Lynn, if there's a chance in the future, could I treat you to dinner again? Eating alone, it's kind of lonely. Perhaps now that he was gone, she felt lonely. And she didn't want to show her grief to people she knew. Or perhaps, like me, she was used to being alone. Or maybe she was just so grief-stricken that the words just came out. But as I opened the taxi door, I froze on the street. After a long time, I looked back. Okay. That night, I didn't go back to the beach after all. Instead, I found a hotel and checked in. Late at night, the pain in my body was so intense I blindly took a handful of painkillers. Looking out the window, I had the immediate urge to jump. But in that instant, her voice floated into my mind. In the future, could I treat you to dinner again? Eating alone, it's kind of lonely. The urge to jump was somehow, forcefully, pushed back down. I started getting frequent calls from her. Sometimes for a meal, sometimes just to sit together for a while. After Evan died, it felt like no one ever wanted to be around me, not even to say a few words. But now, it seemed like there was someone in this world who was enduring the same pain as me, longing for someone to hold on to for warmth. Even if it was just eating a meal in silence, just to draw a tiny bit of warmth. I drifted through the next half a month in a daze. The female officer, Kate, even helped me find a job after learning I was unemployed. She said it was as an assistant to one of the police department's medical examiners, handling things I was familiar with. The work wasn't difficult and the pay was decent. She also told me, I found an apartment for you too, the rent is very cheap. Lily, have you considered staying in Bayside and giving it a try? Everyone at the station is very grateful to you. We could have dinner together often in the future. I suddenly remembered again. The night I was preparing to die, walking into the deep sea. In the distance, I saw the bonfire, the laughing and cheering crowd. I still didn't give her an answer. After all, with my illness at this stage, death wasn't something I could decide on anymore. One night, I suddenly had a nosebleed and woke up from a dream. Looking at the bloodstains on the pillow, I felt a sudden, instinctive fear. It seemed I was starting to be afraid of death, and no longer saw it as just a release. The letter floated to my side and gently pressed against my face, like a silent comfort. I looked at it and said, it's strange. I think I suddenly want to live. But I should be dying very soon. The letter kept me company in silence. After a long while, words appeared. Maybe there will be a miracle. A terminally ill patient, with no cure. What kind of miracle could there be? I smiled and said nothing more. I didn't officially start the job. But for a while, I couldn't bring myself to seek death again. My health was up and down. Occasionally, when I felt okay and had nothing to do, I would go and help the medical examiner. One evening, after the ME had just finished an autopsy and determined the cause of death, a group from the squad decided to go out for dinner. The ME, a friendly older guy, poured me a drink, saying it was to toast my selfless dedication. He said that once I officially started, he would make sure my salary was doubled. No one had ever toasted me before, so I hesitated for a moment. He rubbed his nose and said, I've thoroughly sterilized my hands, so please don't be grossed out. Before, it was always others who were grossed out by me. I took the drink and downed it in one go. The spicy liquid burned its way down my throat and into my stomach. I suddenly felt as if I was starting to live again. The group ate and drank boisterously, and then dispersed just as boisterously. That night, sitting on my bed, I looked at the letter and said, don't you think I'm a strange person? One minute I want to die, The next I want to live. It replied, Lily, do what you want to do. I felt like I had seen those words before. I suddenly realized that I hadn't seen Evan's letter much lately. The last time I saw it was almost half a month ago. And these last few times, over several months, it seemed to always give me the same answer. And my consciousness seemed to be gradually forgetting about him, about the letter. I found it a bit strange. But these thoughts were quickly erased from my mind. The letter disappeared. I lay down on the bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of the piggy bank. I was holding it, about to light it on fire at the beach. But the sea breeze blew past and extinguished the flames. I heard a strange laugh in my ear. Nothing from the human world can be burned and sent to the underworld, except for spirit money and offerings. He was lying to you, didn't you know? The sudden voice startled me. The piggy bank couldn't be lit, but it rolled to my feet. The bank suddenly opened, and its contents spilled out all over the ground. Inside were letters, one after another, written in a free and beautiful hand. It wasn't the messy, ugly handwriting I was used to seeing. But between the lines there was a faint, familiar feeling. Along with the letters, a ring rolled out. The words on the letters forced their way into my mind. Lily asked me what my wish is. Can I tell her that I want to be with her? No, better not. I'm not good enough. My foster dad beat me up, but I got the money and bought that beautiful ring. Can I give it to Lily? Will she be angry? Lily said my handwriting is ugly. Actually, it's not that bad. I hope Lily can be reunited with her family and live a happy and peaceful life. If I can be with her, I'll dig up the piggy bank and give it to her. I wonder if she'll like it. The words on those letters were like daggers, stabbing into my mind. I woke with a jolt, drenched in cold sweat. I tried to recall the dream. I found that everything in the dream, just like Evan and the letter, was once again becoming blurry in my mind. The next morning, while brushing my teeth, my gums didn't bleed. I suddenly remembered that I hadn't had a nosebleed in several days either. On a strange impulse, I went to the hospital. I suddenly wanted to ask how many days I had left to live. A month, half a month, or just a few days. After looking at my test results, the doctor told me, the abnormal increase in white blood cells needs to be managed with medication and lifestyle changes. At this point, I didn't want to hear any comforting words or euphemisms. So I said directly, Doctor, how many days do I have left? The middle-aged director, who was typing at his keyboard to prescribe medication, froze. He looked up at me strangely. Miss, you have symptoms of a cold, which is causing an elevated white blood cell count due to a bacterial infection. It's normal for people to get sick occasionally. Why would you think it's as serious as you say? I explained, Doctor, I know my condition. It's late-stage leukemia. You don't have to hide it from me. I don't have any family, so you can just tell me the truth. The doctor's expression grew even stranger, as if he suspected there was something wrong with my head. He handed me the report to see for myself. It's just a temporary bacterial infection. There is no leukemia. I left the hospital. It was late autumn in Bayside, but the sun was still high and bright. I stood in the sunlight, holding the diagnostic report, and didn't move for a long time. The clusters of trees cast large shadows. In an empty, shaded spot, someone had dropped a medical report. The wind picked up the paper and blew it in front of me. Then it lifted it into the air. Suddenly, I remembered a letter, remembered someone who had left. It was like a hand in my mind, forcefully erased the things that had just surfaced. I struggled to remember, again and again. Then I stood there under the blazing sun, not understanding why I was suddenly standing here. I went back to my rented apartment, and after many days, the intense headaches started again. I went to the drawer to look for painkillers. I knocked over the bottle, and pills scattered all over the floor. Before I could pick up a single one, I collapsed to the ground and lost consciousness. In my hazy state, it seemed like my phone was ringing. It seemed like someone came in, urgently calling my name, Lily, Lily. I couldn't tell the difference between reality and dream, couldn't tell whose voice it was. I had another dream. In the dream, I saw the letter. And clearly, I remembered the letter, remembered Evan. The window was wide open, and the night wind poured in. The letter was blown over, and for the first time I saw its back. Evan's transparent figure rushed forward, trying to block the letter. But I still saw everything on it clearly. It was a series of short diary entries, flipping past my eyes one by one. The handwriting was elegant and beautiful. Not messy, not ugly. I snuck a peek at the book of life and death, and saw that Lily's death date is today. I went to argue with the high judge, but he said he didn't make a mistake. I ran to the human world and saw Lily sitting against the bathroom wall. Her body was slowly turning transparent, and one of the judge's reapers was dozing nearby, waiting for her. I woke her up and said, "Excuse me. I know I shouldn't do this, but I don't like that her life has to end in such a messy, unfinished way." I lied to Lily, told her I wanted my piggy bank back. She believed me. She thinks she can actually burn it and send it to me. She's still planning to die. I heard her thoughts. She's going to jump into the sea. I want to save her, no matter the cost. I saw the drug traffickers arrogantly dump that police officer's body on the beach. The tide was rising, slowly engulfing the body. I led Lily there. I lied and told her that's where she scattered my ashes. I have no right to force her to live. She's tormented by illness and no one loves her. But I thought, could I let her choose for herself, just one more time? To choose to live, or to die? Lily saved the body. I hope that the family and friends of that officer can, in turn, help me save her. She's going to live. I had the high judge cross out her terminal illness in the book of life and death. The judge said it's time to honor our deal. A lesser demon escaped from the inferno. He's afraid of being punished and needs a soul to take its place. No soul wants to go. Once you enter the inferno, you never get reincarnated. Endless labor, forever without release. So the judge agreed to my deal. The human world isn't supposed to know about the affairs of the underworld. She will soon forget me, forget the letter. I thought about it. Should I leave her one last message? Lily, do what you want to do. I was suffocating in the dream, desperately trying to grab onto something. Watching that transparent figure sink into the inferno, dissolving into nothing. I screamed. I cried for help, but no one saw me. Sunlight pierced my eyes, and I woke with a jolt. Kate was sitting by my bed, wiping my forehead with a towel. She jumped when I suddenly sat up. Once, while I was exploring the beach, I accidentally fell and discovered the body of a police officer in the sea. That body belonged to Kate's boyfriend. Because of that, Kate and I became friends. I sat on the bed, still shaken. I had a nightmare. Kate asked me what was it about. I thought hard, but I couldn't remember anything. I guess that's how it is with dreams, they're always hard to recall. I officially became the team's forensic assistant. After work, Kate and I would sometimes get a few colleagues together and go for barbecue at a food stall. Life was peaceful. One weekend, while scrolling through my phone at home, I came across a few photos. One was of a woman's silhouette standing in the deep sea at twilight. For some reason, it felt familiar, as if I had seen it before. Another photo was from the same night. The police were at the beach, taking away a body, probably someone who had drowned themselves. I sighed with a bit of sadness. The next evening, while watching TV, I saw a news report about the arrest of a college student named Jessica Chin. The report said that for a time, she had been known as Jessica Davis. She was the fake heiress the Davis family had mistakenly brought home. Later, when the truth came out, she couldn't handle falling from grace. She got involved with a bad crowd, engaging in sex work and financial fraud. The crimes were serious, and she was sentenced to life in prison. The news then mentioned that the Davis family's real daughter had died at sea. Mrs. Davis, heartbroken, had a fatal heart attack. Mr. Davis and his eldest son, Leo, had also become mentally unstable. They would ask everyone they met if they had seen the Davis family's child. The Davis Corporation was on the verge of collapse. It was like a cheesy soap opera about a wealthy family. I watched for a bit, then got bored and turned off the TV. I was lost from my family when I was very young. Fortunately, my classmates were kind, and the orphanage looked after me. After graduating from college, I got a well-paying job. For some reason, I never had much interest in finding my real family. At 28, I married a police officer from the team, and we had a sweet daughter. Life was always calm and smooth. The winters in Bayside were always warm. One day, I went to a client's house to restore a body. The client was a famous businessman in Bayside, but he was polite and gentle. The middle-aged man personally welcomed me in and brought me tea. His eyes were filled with grief, but he still patiently explained. The deceased is my wife. Our son went missing when he was 7, and we were never able to find him. My wife suffered from depression for decades, and in the end, his voice trailed off, his eyes turning red. For some reason, I found his features vaguely familiar. Figuring it was probably just my imagination, I didn't say anything. I prepared the body for burial. When I was leaving, the man paid me double. He also invited me to see his son's bedroom. The son had been missing for over 20 years, but the room was still as neat as if it were new. I could see how much the couple had adored their son. On the desk, there were still second-grade textbooks. They were well preserved but had yellowed with age. On the cover, a name was written in neat, beautiful script. Evan Shen. I stared at the 2 words, lost in thought. The man looked sad and lonely, yet he spoke with pride. He used to be the most well-behaved, smartest kid. As I was leaving the villa, the man walked me to the door. He said to me, earnestly and sincerely, he has a black birthmark on his left cheek, near his ear. If you ever see someone like that, please, you must tell me. Thank you so much. I nodded and left. As I was walking out of the front yard, my vision suddenly went dark. A voice inexplicably surfaced in my mind. A boy's voice tinged with a laugh. I had never heard it before, yet it felt like it should have been part of my memory. My foster father doesn't like it when my handwriting is good. He has a biological son, and his son's handwriting is bad. He can't stand me being better than his son. My handwriting is ugly? Actually, it wasn't that bad to begin with. The voice seemed to be right beside me. I turned my head. No one was there. A sudden gust of wind blew on the winter day. As I was waiting for a car by the road, a little girl ran past me, clutching a stack of drawings. She tripped on something and fell. As I quickly moved to help her up, a piece of drawing paper, caught by the wind, floated onto me. It felt like a light, silent hug. The little girl hastily thanked me. She picked up her scattered drawings and ran off. In my hazy memory, I seemed to find a piece of paper too. Or maybe it wasn't paper. It reached across the void and gently hugged me too. It said, I hope Lily can live a happy and peaceful life. The end.